Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host, Valerie, and sometime kitty co-hosts, Miss Purrington and Mookie. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, our advice column, my Austin Chronicle articles, our festivals page showing festivals across the country and the world, and our FPIA contest page. We're best known for our events page for live comedy shows in Austin, Houston, and DFW, where 100% of the entries that you see come from comics and producers. If you want your show featured on the calendar, click the Submit a Show from the top of the homepage or events page to complete the short survey. It's free and easy. Tag us on your Instagram stories and we'll share your show promo to our Instagram followers. Want to support these resources we provide? You can donate to Comedy Wham on PayPal, Venmo, or even Patreon. Click the Support CW icon on our homepage to see the ways that you can help us. Now back to our podcast. Launched in 2016, the podcast project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country, and especially for those who graciously come back to Austin from time to time to perform at our Austin venues. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today I'm talking to somebody who's got two albums. Tangled Up in Plaid is their debut album, and Bummin' with the Devil is their second. And I am excited to say that Tangled Up in Plaid is not only an excellent showcase of our guest's talents, but it was the first thing that I ever played in my new car. He's the writer for Hard Time News. He's the co-host of the AEW-some Pod. He'll correct me on the pronunciation. And he's a talented and brilliant storyteller who unwittingly, and I think against my will, turned me into an Incubus fan. And he is coming back to headline the Velveeta Room on February 2nd and 3rd, and you do not want to miss his shows. And now Comedy Wham presents our returning guest, Johnny Taylor.
Hey, Valerie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
Johnny. Yeah, your first interview with us was actually with Laura Smith, who says hello and that she misses you.
Laura's awesome.
Yeah, she found you before I did. She found yours and Keith's podcast. And reviewed it as part of the podcast that she and I used to do together. We still talk about doing it from time to time, but we just never do. And and then I became a fan when I saw you at Altercation Fest a few years back. This is all pre-pandemic talk.
Oh man, the before times.
Yeah, the before times. And what was really fascinating about the conversation that you had with Laura is how you said you really liked Austin, and you both ended up kind of going down this road of talking about how Austin, really ought to be on the level of LA and New York comedy scenes. And now post-pandemic, I think it is actually fair.
Yeah, it totally became LA and New York in one crazy little Texas town. So I'm a prognosticator apparently.
Yeah,
so.
You are. You absolutely are. And then I want to thank you because I know you did. We suckered you into doing our online show. I think you only had the patience to do it once.
I remember. I actually had fun. That was fun.
Yeah. I mean, we tried to make it fun, and we weren't doing it for gross reasons. We wanted to give people an outlet, and if they tried it and hated it, then they move on.
Right.
But I remember one of Laura's friends became like a big fan of yours, Kate Hester, and
Kate. Yeah. I love Kate. She's awesome.
So that was kind of a cool thing to see the connection that you can make, across the country in this comedy world.
Yeah. That was the cool thing about doing some of those Zoom shows was you would have a chance to meet people on the other side of the country that you really hadn't, run into. So those Zoom shows weren't always the best, but I mean, most of us didn't have anything else to do at the time. So and some of them turned out pretty good.
Yeah. Well, 5 years ago was that first podcast with us, and you were living in LA at the time.
I was, yep.
And you made the move back to the Sacramento, right?
Sacramento, yep.
Yeah.
Sacktown, 916. Yeah, LA was, I lived in LA for 4 years, and, I moved back to Sac. I had broken up with the gal I was with and booked myself for like 6 months straight on the road and didn't know where I would end up. I was thinking about either moving out. I considered Austin. I considered Denver. I considered Portland, Philadelphia, and New York. And ended up going back to Sac and met a gal and that lived in Sac. She was a comic and we ended up dating and I was like, well, I guess I'll stay in Sacramento. So, I've since broken up with that gal. So, who knows where I'll end up next.
Well, in that recurring theme, are you thinking about another move?
Kind of perpetually, thinking about moving. Yeah, I mean, I love Sac and, there's a whole group of new comics out here that, I teach a storytelling class at the Sacramento Punchline. And, so every month, I see a new group of like newer comics.
Yeah.
And it's such an exciting scene in Sac and there's so many kind of younger, newer, talented people. That's what keeps me in the scene is watching people come up and watching people improve but yeah, I'm always kind of looking elsewhere, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But you're back on tour, so you can kind of get a taste for the different cities that you tour.
Yeah. And it's, I've seen all the places at this point and, I am starting this next weekend. I'm back on the road and I'll be kind of on and off the road through April.
Okay.
So yeah, coming back to Austin and, I'll be in Salt Lake City and doing some stuff in Seattle and Portland and, the Bay Area. So it kind of cures my wanderlust a little bit being on the road. So maybe after I get off the road, I'll be like, "Sweet home Sacramento. I'm never leaving you." But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Now, one of the things that I was amazed by when Laura talked to you is you do not write anything in a notebook. You basically work and still don't.
No,
So,
never have.
So one of the things that I like to give my guests on the podcast is a notebook. So I guess that, that could be your grocery list notebook.
Yeah. I'll write my other thoughts in there. My non-comedy related thoughts. Yeah, it is a weird thing. It's just never worked for me. And I've forgotten so many bits because of it. So I probably should. Yeah, it's one of those things I'll run into somebody that's like, remember that bit you used to do? And I'm just like, I don't remember it. I forgot all about that one. So, probably would be a good idea to kind of archive it somewhere, but I've just never been my thing.
Yeah. So I'm curious, since you don't do any writing in a notebook for what you do on stage, how do you teach the storytelling class? What do you tell your students?
I definitely tell them to do as I say, not as I do.
Okay.
I think it's and everybody's going to have their own way of kind of archiving their material. But for a storytelling class, especially when sometimes it's comics that have been doing it for, 6 months to 2 years and they're already in the habit of, writing it down in a moleskin journal.
Yeah.
And, a lot of times they're incorporating an element to their stand-up that they haven't really done yet, which is kind of a narrative-based bit.
Yeah.
That's going to be a little bit longer, a little bit more expansive. So, yeah, I definitely suggest taking notes.
Yeah.
And writing them down.
And you're a podcast dabbler. You've done the podcast with Keith years back, and I was looking through all the lists of podcasts that you've done, but you seem to have kind of struck on a golden idea in the last year with the
The Awesome Pod.
It is the Awesome Pod. Okay, so
Yeah,
I butchered it by.
No, everybody does, because that it's spelled in a way that does not say awesome. So AEW, All Elite Wrestling, it's AEW centric. So, and it's me, and it's Darcy the Mail Girl from Joe Bob Briggs' Last Drive-In, and then horror movie director Brendan Patrizzo, and then Mistress Harley, very famous dominatrix. It's basically 4 weirdos talking about wrestling twice a week, and it's become, one of the higher ranked wrestling podcasts. I don't know how, but it has. And we've had amazing guests on. We've had, Joe Bob Briggs has been on a bunch of times, and we've had Chris Jericho on a bunch of times.
Wow.
And it's become, a part of my life, something I know I do 2 times a week. And I'm always looking for stability, Valerie. So, just the fact that I know I have to do something a couple of times a week keeps me grounded.
Yeah. So how did this group of weirdos end up together collaborating on a podcast?
Well, I used to have a podcast for the hard times called The Hard Talk. Okay. And I had Darcy the Mail Girl on as a guest, and we talked a little bit off mic about wrestling. And then, I texted her and I was like, oh, we should have talked more about wrestling. And then she was like, oh, we should have our own podcast. Huh. And then a couple months later, we kind of let it go, funny idea. Sure. Then a couple of months later, we kind of reconnected, and she was like, no, for real, let's do it. So we roped Brendan in with the original idea of having someone on the show that doesn't watch wrestling at all, and is learning it as he watches and through the podcast. And then just recently we added Mistress Harley, who had been a guest, and now it's the Fearsome Foursome. So all it was a joke idea, something on a lark, and then next thing you know, 70 episodes later, you're still kicking them out. So
wow. When you talked to Laura, your future word was hopeful, and then the pandemic happened 2 years later. And
that changed my word.
Yeah. Has anything changed for you about how you approach comedy in the post-pandemic world?
Yeah, I guess I don't take it for granted anymore. I think the whole time pre-pandemic was write the stuff, perform the stuff, get paid for the stuff. And then suddenly, the getting paid for the stuff and performing the stuff was brought to a screeching halt. Yeah. So I guess every time I go out there now, I'm grateful that I have a chance to do it, try to soak it in, because the year and a half or so that I wasn't performing was incredibly depressing for me. So yeah, you don't really know what you got till it's gone. It's one of those things where it's easy to bitch and moan about okay, this isn't happening. I didn't catch this break. I didn't, you're never working enough as you want to be working, or you're working too much and you're burned out. There's never really a chance to just be grateful. And so I think I'm pretty grateful I have a pretty cool life. And so, every time I go up there, I make sure that I appreciate it.
You've had some pretty cool things happen besides the podcast last year, and I don't know if I'm just picking on the one thing that popped out to my attention, but you recently performed with Patton Oswalt, who you must go way back with, if memory serves.
Yeah, I met Patton years ago, briefly. And Brian Posehn is one of my best friends, and by proxy, it feels like I've known Patton forever because Patton's one of Brian's best friends. Uh-huh. But that was the first time I ever really performed with him and spent some time with him, was at Largo, and incredible show. And then, he does a whole post on Instagram, where he really said some kind things, and he didn't have to do that, it means so much to get validation from one of the best working. And, yeah, it meant a lot. That was definitely a highlight of my 2023 was performing at Largo and getting those kind words from Patton. It was neat.
Had you performed at Largo before?
No, that was the first time, but I'll be back this year doing
cool.
some shows. So that'll be cool.
Yeah. Besides, going on tour, are there any, projects percolating?
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to record a new special this year.
Oh.
It's an hour that I've been, I did record a third special, at the Valve.
Oh.
That was back a couple years back, right after the pandemic, kind of was coming to a, not a close, but it was steaming down.
Yeah.
And, I was in a very bad place at the time. And, the shows are fun. I did 3 and listening back to them, the crowds were great. But I didn't like my performance of it. I think it made for a good live show, but it wasn't tight enough for me to feel really good about releasing it, especially since I think my first 2 albums are pretty good. So I had some material on there that came off sounding definitely a little bit more mean spirited than I wanted it to about my last relationship that I was in. So she doesn't deserve that, So I was like, yeah, I would rather not put this out. So, I agreed with my label that we wouldn't put it out. So a lot of that material from that album will be on this next special. And, I'm very excited about this next one. I can't say too much about it, but, when I announce it, it's going to be dope. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that difficult for you to realize that, this thing you've put your energies towards recording a new special, you have to let that go, essentially? And sounds like you're not letting all of it go, but you're letting, parts of it go. Is that tough, or does that come naturally because you realize, oh, looking back, yeah, I can judge it fairly and say, yep, this doesn't belong.
Yeah, it would have been pretty easy just to be like, well, I recorded it, so let's put it out. But it's not bad. Maybe someday it'll get released as like a drunken night in Austin, the lost tapes. But, it just wasn't anything that, I would have been proud of, and especially coming off Bumming with the Devil, which I really like.
Yeah.
And it's something that I am proud of. It definitely, I just was, I'm not the same person I am now that I was then. And that person was, kind of a drunk, sad, bitter, sloppy, not good comic. I had good material, but I didn't perform it very well.
So we're talking about something that was 3 years ago?
3 years ago. Yeah.
Wow.
3.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a big shift in like recognizing who you were then to who you are now.
Right. And it'll be better now. The jokes I had for that special that I did are better now. And then I have another 30 minutes that I like better than the other 30 minutes that I'm not going to record. So
yeah,
it all works out, just a waiting game. But, yeah, I'm stoked to record this third one. I think it's going to be really good.
Yeah. I'm going to go back again to the well of your interview with Lauren. One of the things that you were talking about is writing pilots, because you were in LA, and that's what one does when you're a comic in LA. Is that something you dabble in anymore, or did you just kind of let that life go when you left LA?
Yeah, writing is always something. I mean, I love writing, but, and I sold a pilot when I was in LA, so LA wasn't all bad to me.
Oh, good.
But they didn't do anything with it, but at least I got some money.
Yeah.
But I've been acting more, which has been a new thing. I was one of the key players in a pilot that got shot and got into a bunch of film festivals.
Nice.
Called Staffed, which was directed by Raul Gonzo. And, that was a fun experience. And then, I was recently in, Megalodon the Frenzy. And then I just shot one called Don't Answer that is, directed by Marcus Allen, out here in Sac. And yeah, it's been cool kind of, doing the acting thing. I never viewed myself as an actor. I was always like, I'm a comic, but acting's fun too. So it's, and then I was in Melissa Villaseñor's music video. She's one of my good friends. So, yeah, more dabbling with that and, way less effort than writing. Gotta tell you
that. But do you have to memorize lines for any of these acting jobs that you've done?
Yeah, I did. And, wasn't bad because I'm used to it anyways. I memorized my act, I never write that down. So.
Oh, okay.
I have a very good memory apparently. So yeah, the remembering the lines wasn't a big issue for me, which was good. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to say I'm fucking Leonardo DiCaprio, but I'm not bad. I don't think I'm bad.
Well, you'd have to get your start at, I don't know, 12, 10, 6, 8.
Yeah.
However early you started.
No, that ship's definitely sailed. So started a lot later than
that. You mentioned that you love writing. Are you still writing for, I said that you were in the intro. Are you still writing for the Hard Times?
I kind of always have the option to, it's just a matter of submitting some stuff. But yeah, I'm always writing something, whether it's for my own blog or for Facebook, epic Facebook posts. But, I write so much every day, and so much of it is, might just be a joke I'm throwing out there on Twitter, or I guess X is how it's called. What a shit show that platform is. But, some stuff works and then some of it has enough heat where you could be like, oh, maybe I could turn that into something and then try it out on stage. But more than anything, social media posting and writing is for me to workshop stuff, unless I'm being very overly vulnerable, which I have a tendency to do as well.
And what is your relationship with Instagram 5 years after both you and Laura trashed Instagram?
Oh yeah, we did do that. That's kind of fun. I'm never going to be attractive enough to have a big following on Instagram. But I do like utilizing it to get jokes out there, and it's a good promotional tool. And I've had I had a reel on Instagram of a clip from my last special, hit 1 million views, which is like bananas. Yeah. I'm like, what am I, Matt Rife? But so yeah, Instagram I've been able to utilize it as, something that I would consider at least partially productive for my career. But I'm not like, there's a lot of people that are making livings, selling a lot of tickets from having that Instagram following. And that's not me at this point, but I don't discount it entirely. Whatever I said bad about Instagram, I take most of it back.
Well, let's see where we stand today on the YouTubers who perform at comedy clubs.
Yeah, the YouTubers have now become the TikTokers. So, and I'm not trying to knock food out of anybody's mouth. You know what I mean? It's, if you can get a following on TikTok, more power to you. It's just not my thing. Yeah. But there's a lot of people, there's good comics on TikTok too. I know some of them. Yeah. But if you're solely a comedian that is only has a following because of, 3-second, bad crowd work clips, then yeah, I'm not going to respect you. Show me more.
Yeah.
Show me more. You can be funny for 30 seconds, but can you fill an hour? That would really impress me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I've certainly seen as a change at, Cap City before the pandemic was the only big club in town. And now that
Right.
they're back, they have two rooms, a big and a smaller room, and they will bring in, some of these YouTube or TikTok stars to sell a room out. And it's like, man, our landscape has just changed so much.
It's different.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, then you have Matt Rife, who,
Right.
whatever.
Matt Rife's an interesting one because, he kind of had the world handed to him.
Yeah.
And then managed his first really huge thing he did, the Netflix special, he managed to change people's opinion on him negatively.
Yeah.
Very drastically and quickly. The news cycle is so funny that way, where you'll get built up and you'll get knocked down just as fast. So, and I know Matt, to a degree. I'm not well, but, he's always been so nice.
Mm-hmm.
But, do I think he's a great comic? No, I don't. But do I think he's the worst comic? Not at all.
Yeah.
I think he's very attractive and he's pretty good,
Yeah. He's young,
He's,
so you got
he's young.
time to build the skills.
Right. And he's also got time to, figure out how not to ruin his career with one bad joke, So
Yeah.
I hope he learns something.
Yeah, I do too. I'm a big fan of Jeremiah Watkins, and
Same.
I remember when Matt was on Jeremiah's podcast, he was at the time really the only thing people knew about him was that he had dated, these hot women.
Yeah, he dated Kate Beckinsale for a while, which
Yeah.
is just next level.
Yeah. But that he'd been doing comedy a long time. He was a hard worker. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And so I was interested in this special because I'm like, I know Jeremiah, he picks people that he likes to be guests on this podcast. He's not going to, necessarily clout chase to have guests on there. And so I respected Matt and was intrigued. And then I saw the special and I'm like, oh, you have a lot to learn. Got this massive platform, and that's okay. You can stumble, and there's no book that tells you exactly how to do the comedy thing. So
definitely not. I mean, I'm not. I think Matt's probably been doing it a little bit less time than me, but when you have that platform, a bunch of eyes are going to be on you. And then you kind of open your act with kind of like some edgelord bullshit.
Yeah.
You got to expect you're going to have some some negative feedback for that. So, part of me is like, I probably did it on purpose, just to, a lot of people talked about it. So
exactly.
And we already know he's very good at marketing himself.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Well, anyway, I didn't want to turn this into the Matt Rife discussion episode.
I'm always down for a good Matt Rife discussion. Let me tell you.
Oh, well, so from afar, what do you think about the Austin comedy scene and all of the changes that you've seen? LA, I don't know if there was really much of an impact for Rogan and Hinchcliffe and everybody moving out of LA. I don't know that it left much of a vacuum. The Comedy Store is still the Comedy Store.
Right.
But what do you, as an outside observer, what do you think about what's been going on in Austin?
Well, I have mixed feelings about it because Austin already had a great scene.
Yeah.
Before those guys moved there and everything. And I know that for a while it was like a scene divided.
Yeah.
Where it was like you had the Austin stalwarts that were, living there for a long time and doing their thing and their independent shows. And then kind of Rogan moved out there. And, I have friends on both sides of the Austin comedy, fence. I will say that, I did the Vulcan Gas Company last year, and it drew a crowd that I was not exactly familiar with performing in Austin. I've done Cap City and obviously the Velve, and I've done Altercation Fest a few times, and I was used to like creative weirdos coming out to the show, and this drew a decidedly more douchebag crowd that myself or Brian Posehn, I don't think we were expecting mentally.
Yeah.
The shows were still fun and they treated us real nice. But it was like, who are these people and when did they move here? So, but like, I think every city's kind of like that in a way. So if more people are getting an opportunity to perform stand-up comedy because Joe Rogan moved there, then, I'm all for quality stage time. So, but do I miss the Austin comedy scene I used to go to, 5, 6, 7 years ago? Yeah, I do. But, shit changes and you just gotta kind of roll the punches. So.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bigger marketplace now. So now there's,
For sure.
every different little niche, whereas before it was just a very independent scene. And now you've got corporate, you have the douchebag scene, you have the independent, you've got everything in between. And there's audiences that pay money to see all of it. So,
yeah. So, I'm all for, I'm team stand-up comedy, or wherever it is. And if the comedy mothership gives, people a place where they can, make a career out of doing stand-up if they're good enough, then cool,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the first time in Austin that we have, what I call a formal apprenticeship program. We've never had that, before.
That's awesome.
That's what they do. It's the Comedy Store model. And, I follow the mothership on Instagram and I see the pictures of these kids, some of them starting out pre-pandemic, who are now on stages all the time. And it's an immense and must be a very intense learning experience, but they're learning and they are hopefully getting better.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, I don't have any negative words about, younger comics getting a chance to get better in a cool environment. So good for them.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what, any surprises up your trick? Am I up your sleeve for the, Velveeta shows? Are you going to turn me into an unwitting fan of some other band?
Oh, that's so funny. It's so that Incubus bit. It's so funny because, people think I'm really bagging on Incubus in the bit, and I'm bagging on Incubus as a vehicle to get a story about disappointment, having unrealistic expectations. But I actually don't really hate Incubus. So many people were like, after a show, they're like, oh, you don't like Incubus? I'm like, I don't love them, but it's more of the point of the story is that I really built something up in my head and, then was disappointed, but I've must have gotten them so many spins on Spotify because people hit me up on Instagram. They're like, I had to listen to that song after your bit. And I'm like, well, I'm really doing them favors,
You really are, because
I've probably made them 25 cents at least on Spotify spins.
They're the kind of band where I always enjoyed them, for what they were.
Right.
And now Whereas in the past, I might have skipped ahead if they came up on the station. If I skip ahead, now I want to listen to them because I'm like, okay, this connects me to Johnny's story, which I just loved so much.
Oh, I
And
love that. Thank you.
yeah,
When they come up on my Spotify, I am more prone to listen to them now because it gives me a positive feeling. I'm like,
yeah,
oh, I killed this bit tonight. Got
yeah.
to crank this one up. Um, that's
I mean,
funny.
talk about the power of comedy to shift somebody's thinking like that, because a lot of times you'll hear somebody set, you might walk out the door and not remember anything specific, but to have
Right.
something that makes such an impact on people that, changes their behavior, Johnny, you know,
Right.
even a year later, it's, that's amazing. That's an amazing
Huh.
gift.
What a great compliment. Yeah, I knew that bit was good when I was actually in Austin at Altercation Fest,
Uh-huh.
and we did the all headliners show, and so it was like Pepitone and Ben Roy and me and JT, and I did that bit, and Ben Roy came up to me and he was like, "That might be the funniest bit I've heard all year." And I was like, "Oh, what a huge compliment." And then the next night I was with Posehn at Kick Butt Coffee, and I started doing the bit, and I saw Ben Roy come into the room to watch the bit, and I was like, okay, now I know. Like
Yeah.
he wanted to specifically see me do that bit again. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I'm gonna be sad when I'm not doing that one anymore because it's still very fun to tell. It's
Hmm.
such a fun
Yeah.
story to tell. So,
Yeah.
and thanks for the kind words. That means a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for being such a gifted storyteller and comic
Uh,
to be able to
and
pull that off.
You're
Um,
making me blush over here, Valerie. I know you can't see
I
because
can't see.
it seems like I'm sitting in a jail cell, doing this. My ring light's, in the shop right now. So,
Oh no. So, you've got 3 shows at the Vel, the
3
Friday
shows.
and 2 Saturday shows.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's going to be fun. I love that room, and Austin, as you know, Austin's always been so good to me. They always come out and see me. They're always so supportive. And I have so many great friends that live there, like Avery Moore, still one of my dear friends,
Yeah.
and JT, obviously. So, I always love coming back in. Christina Parrish, who I know is not doing a lot of stand up right now, but I love her dearly. So, it's always good to come back into town and see some folks that, I haven't seen in a year. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I like that you're, 2 years running. This is an annual January, February tradition. So, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
more would be good, but,
Right.
at least once a year.
I'm probably coming back for Altercation Fest this year. So,
Woo.
that'll be a lot of fun. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's in negotiations,
Ah, nice. Nice, nice.
but
Well,
I'd love to come
Johnny,
back.
is there anything else that you want to tell people, or you'll get your promo and socials out in a bit, but is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want people to know?
Oh, no, just, keep supporting live comedy. The last few years have been very difficult, for live entertainment for everybody, but also for live entertainers. So, don't take it for granted. If there's something you have a hankering to see, or if you're curious about something, go out and do it. Go out and
Yeah.
see it. Cause you never know when suddenly, you're going to be trapped inside your house watching Friends reruns for 6 weeks straight. So yeah, I would just say keep supporting live comedy wherever you're at in the country. Uh, there's good comics there. There's good comedy there, and probably a pretty cool venue to see it in. So,
Yeah.
just keep doing it. It's such an important, art form, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very good creative outlet.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham Presents Johnny Taylor. Johnny, tell us where to follow you on social media and your projects.
You can find me on social media at Hipsterocracy, pretty much everywhere. X, the Instagram, Facebook. If you want to really, really be my friend, you can be on Facebook. Facebook, I'm maxed out on friends, and my public profile I don't really do anything with. And you'll get a lot more of like, just don't follow me on Facebook. It's not, you'll just hear about me bitching about like what happened at the grocery store. But everywhere else you can find me at Hipsterocracy. My special Bumming with the Devil is streaming for free on Tubi. If you want to watch it on Tubi, you can. Also it's on Amazon and Apple TV and all the other places too. So if you want to watch it. And then, yeah, I'll have an announcement about a new special here in the not too distant future.
Nice.
And, yeah, just follow me and stay updated. And come see me at the Velveeta Room, February 2nd and 3rd, 3 shows. It's gonna be fun.
Yeah. And, don't forget about the debut Tangled Up in Plaid. I think that's just a classic, perfect album. It's so.
Oh,
yeah.
Thank you. A lot of people still, I don't love that album anymore, but, a lot of people still come up to me and say, oh, that's my favorite one. So, that's cool. I'm glad people still like it. But I hear that a lot. So thank you for the kind words. I'm glad that thing holds up.
Yeah.
I try not to listen to
it. That's okay. We'll do that for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We hope you've enjoyed learning about how Johnny got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, just as much as I have. We love having him on, and we're excited to support his return to the Velveeta Room. And this has been Comedy Wham Presents Johnny Taylor. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Johnny.
Thanks so much, Val. Appreciate it.